Get out. Get out, Brandon. Get out.
I'm trying. I can't.
It's impossible. Wisconsin has got you in its clutches.
Very true.
Which is not a wholly bad thing.
Not all the time. Just most of the time.
I also want to say that I bet every listener, when they saw what this episode is about, they're like, oh, yeah, these dumbasses are going to start the episode with Get Out.
Yeah. I mean, you said you had an opener and you said it was obvious. And I was thinking it's not going to be just you screaming Get Out, but it is.
It is.
So,
of course it is.
That's pretty good. We got to be predictable sometimes.
I am David, joined as usual by Brandon.
Brandon. Yeah.
I gotta have a question for you, because it's been a little while since we've seen each other. What have you been listening to?
Whoa, you're already getting into it right away. Well,
I'm jumping right in.
I came prepared. I listened to Am I the Drama by Cardi B.
Oh, the famous second album.
Her long-awaited album that came 7 years after her first album. And let me say, it was not really worth the wait. It's fine.
It feels weird to me, perhaps because of just how well-known she is and, how widespread her music is. But it really does feel to me like she has released a lot more music than just 2 albums, which I know is kind of a common perception.
It's very weird because WAP and Up are both on this album. Those came out in 2020 and 2021, which feels like a lifetime ago.
That's crazy.
The album overall was kind of weak, but she does have a diss track towards Bia, B-I-A. She's a rapper from New York, I believe. And I have never liked Bia. I've never liked her music. I think her persona is really annoying. And to hear Cardi B say, name 5 Bia songs, and then mimic getting shot because she couldn't say it was pretty great. And I think Bia's career is probably over.
Damn. I mean, was her career big before this anyways, or was it more like...
No, she's never really done anything. But I will tell you, that's what I listened to. What I didn't listen to is music by a certain artist who blew up on TikTok. And I wanted to ask you if you've heard about this. Have you heard about D4vid? His real name is David. It's pronounced David.
Oh, God. D4vid?
Yeah, have you heard about this?
No, but I feel like I've heard of D4vid. I feel like that sounds familiar.
Okay.
But no.
So this man is a devout Christian. He makes a lot of music about toxic relationships and about him kind of being the toxic one in the relationship.
Tracks with the first part.
Right, exactly. And recently, a car was discovered in the Hollywood Hills. That was his car, a Tesla. And there was a dead body in the trunk.
I've heard of this. I just forgot his name.
Yeah. And it was a 15-year-old girl who had been missing for like a year and a half, who was his girlfriend. And he's 20. They had the same tattoo. Most likely, he either killed her or he hired someone to kill her while he was on tour. And this is really weird. I say do not stream David's music, D4vid's music. And I also wanted to bring this up because I have talked about my hatred of people named Brandon, especially white people named Brandon. There's always a problem with them. And now we have a David who's doing crime.
Oh, gosh.
So I wanted to bring that up and get your opinion. What do you think about other Davids? I don't think we've talked about this before.
I will say 2 things. First of all, there is a large subset of Davids who are horrible people. I just feel like because there are so many, it kind of ends up not being that many of them that are horrible people. But 2, I will say, as the Pope of Davids, because of this podcast, that he is excommunicated. He's not a David anymore. And that's because he has a 4 in his name. So he never was. There we go.
Yeah, he's a D4vid.
Yeah, he's a D4vid.
I agree.
Yeah, that's totally different. Honestly, when you said you were going to talk about a big pop culture moment, I thought you were going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel.
I was going to say, what have you been watching or maybe not watching in this past week? Because this is the other biggest story of the week, is Jimmy Kimmel getting pulled from ABC, being returned to ABC, even though he is not airing in many markets of Nexstar and Sinclair stations. Did you watch?
It's been a long week. I have not watched his speech yet. I've heard about it. I've read about it. I just have not got around to it yet. I don't. It's pretty crazy. Disney sure is going down the drain, aren't they, for what they did? I read that like the number of people that canceled Disney Plus was going pretty high, and I think they lost like $3.5 billion in stock valuations in like the first day.
By the time this episode comes out, it'll be a few weeks later. We try to record early, so I have enough time to edit. And the day that Jimmy Kimmel got pulled, I was editing our episode on Lush by Snail Mail. And obviously, we do Goodwill Hunting, and we talk about Jimmy Kimmel's feud with Matt Damon. And in the episode, I cut out a line that you said that I would like to say now, because obviously we know how the Jimmy Kimmel thing is resolved. But at the time, when I finished editing this episode, I did not know. You said, nobody even wants to talk about Jimmy Kimmel because no one likes him, or something like that. So I cut that out because I was like, well, I don't know, with the times. But this has been a long way for me to ask you a question. What have you watched in the past week?
I actually have two things, and one of them, well, they're both kind of music related, but in different days. And one of them is directly, and you know about it. That is that I went with Jennifer to see Samia live.
Samia.
Her concert at the Fonda Theater. Samia. Is it Samia? Samia?
I think it's Samia. That's how I've heard it said. I don't know. Samia. Look her up, everyone.
I didn't really know her music before Jennifer told me about the concert, but then I listened to it, and I really liked it. And I gotta say, Samia's like performance in terms of in a live setting is amazing. Like her voice sounds exactly the same as it does on the recorded track, which is kind of crazy because obviously it's, you know, that's in a very like set environment where you can do take after take versus where, you know, when you're live, you kind of have to get it on the first try. And her voice was crystal clear, and that made me a bigger fan of her and her work. I also did want to shout out Jennifer and I did run into a friend of the podcast, Grace, at that very concert. That's the first thing. The second thing is I saw one of my top 10 movies of the year contenders literally yesterday.
Oh.
And I'm sad to report that it did fall a little short.
Oh, God. I thought the way you built it up, it sounded like this was going to be really good. God damn.
It was it wasn't a letdown. The movie's called A History of Sound. It stars Paul Mescal, who we've both seen in one of the movies we covered.
Friend of the show, Paul Mescal.
Exactly. And friend of the show, Josh O'Connor, who we saw in another movie that we covered.
Very true.
Yes. And it's about two, I guess you could say, musicians. One of them is a singer, one of them is a composer, in like the 1910s, 1920s, who start a relationship. And it's about them and like them, how they collect songs together. And it's very sad because it's the 1910s and they're gay. I liked the film. Let me start off with that. Unfortunately, it felt self-indulgent. Like there would be these, like the first half was, I thought, very good. But in the second half, you'd have these sequences where I was just sitting there thinking, okay, that could have been cut down or gotten rid of. And then it would go to a sequence where I'm like, oh, okay, this is really good again. And then it would go back to, okay, this could have been cut down. So it was like alternating back and forth, which was such a bummer because I think if it was cut down here and there in places, it would be like a really good film. As it stands, it's still good. I think it's a 3.5 or a 4. It might still sneak up into my top 10, like that stand right now, but that's just because there aren't that many strong movies that I've seen this year. So that's pretty much it. If you're interested, check it out. You might like it. I will say, beautiful looking film, if anything.
Is this like an Oscar contender or like an award show darling kind of film?
I feel like it's too small.
Oh, interesting.
It was showing at Regal, which is the theater that we usually go to, but it was literally showing one time a day to the point that we couldn't make any of the showtime. So we had to go to the Lumley theaters, which are like a regional indie chain of theaters, which, by the way, I highly recommend. Tickets are a lot cheaper. They're like $10 to $13, and it's a really nice indie vibe. But we literally had to go to a theater chain that typically shows smaller movies like this to watch it. So I feel like it's just way too small to, you know, be a contender, even though it did premiere at the Cannes Film Festival and it was nominated for the Palme d'Or.
Well, shout out to that. Sounds like a great week for us for watching and listening to things that weren't very good.
And going through a lot of crazy events in the world.
Before we get into talking about our album, I have to tell you my song of last New Music Friday, which is called Smooth by The Chainsmokers. Now, I know what everyone's thinking right now. The Chainsmokers, oh my God, don't they make terrible music? Well, let me let you in on a little secret. No, they make great music, and everybody just likes to say it's terrible. And I'm going to tell you why I think that is. The pop people don't like the Chainsmokers because they're too EDM. The EDM people don't like the Chainsmokers because they're too pop. I think that they perfectly straddle this, to get cute with it, this pop EDM genre, which is technically the name of it. But I think this is a great song if you like that kind of like a nostalgic early 2010s electronic vibe, kind of more progressive house mixed in with just good pop hooks. Like, that's what they do. And I think this is a great song, and I'm always interested in what they're putting out next because I think it's been extremely consistent for the past 5 years at least. Now, on that note, it's time to talk about a huge work of the 2010s, the second installment in our Halloween month. This is Awaken My Love by Childish Gambino. This album was released December 2nd, 2016 by Glassnote Records. That is our second album by Glassnote that we've done. First one was Two Door Cinema Club, which is kind of strange because Glassnote is not a big label at all. But they just happened to have two huge artists along with another big artist, Phoenix, that we'll have to cover at some point because the lead singer is, of course, married to Sofia Coppola. They have a great song called Identical that's used in one of her movies called On the Rocks, which no one has ever heard of, and I don't believe anyone has watched, including myself, but the song is great. So anyway, there were 3 singles released from this album. Me and Your Mama and Redbone were released a week apart in November of 2016, less than a month before the album, and then in September of 2017, Terrified was released, pushed to, or I believe it was Urban Contemporary Radio, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the song Redbone specifically. This album was teased with a website and an app called Pharos.earth that counted down to performances at Joshua Tree National Park out in the desert of California. He performed the album 3 times in the desert, and everyone thought, what in the hell is this? Is it actually Childish Gambino? Because it is so different from anything he's ever done. And this leads me to my first question. You've heard me, you've heard our friends talk about Childish Gambino. I think you know, I don't think the listeners know, though, that one of my favorite rap albums of all time is Because the Internet by Childish Gambino, which is the album that directly preceded this in 2013. And I wanted to ask you, is this what you thought the album would sound like?
I had a feeling that it would be very different. I mean, partially that, because you said that it was different from maybe his more typical work, but partially also because even though I've barely heard any of Childish Gambino's music, I do know that, he's the type of person to experiment, try new things, push boundaries. So with that perception of him in my mind, I came into this prepared to be surprised in a way. But yeah, it was definitely interesting hearing music that didn't really have that much rap in it, if any at all, because I know that he is kind of first and foremost known as a rapper. I mean, even, on Atlanta where he created and produced, he plays a rapper there, so I know that that's very much a part of, the way that he is seen, along with being, an actor, writer, all the other stuff. So it definitely was an interesting experience listening to this album.
So this album received positive reviews, despite everyone not really knowing what to do with it at first. It peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it was nominated for Album of the Year at the Grammys. And Redbone won Best Traditional R&B Performance at the Grammys. Sadly, he lost Record of the Year, Album of the Year, and R&B Song all to Bruno Mars. I remember watching this ceremony. It was 2017. We've talked briefly about my thoughts on Bruno Mars. I don't think he's a bad person. I just do not like his music at all. At this point, I was unfortunately pissed because he swept basically everything that year, which does not usually happen at the Grammys. Usually they kind of spread it around. And I think this year, when Bruno Mars won everything, they were like, okay, guys, we kind of got to like vote for different things now. And since then, it's been a lot better. I think also the year that Billie Eilish won a bunch of stuff kind of solidified that, where they were like, we're going to expand the categories and we're going to kind of limit how many awards everybody can be nominated for.
Which is interesting because I didn't realize that there was a shift that happened like that.
Yeah, there were only 5 songs nominated at this time. Now, a lot of the big categories, like the general categories, have 8, which I think is too many. I will say, I think 5 is kind of the perfect amount. They still use 5 for a lot of the genre-specific categories and then like Producer of the Year. But I also did want to mention about this Grammy ceremony. This album, or any of the songs on it, competed against Supermodel by SZA in Best R&B Song, that was Redbone, and then Melodrama by Lorde competed against it in Album of the Year. And I believe both of those songs lost to Bruno Mars as well, or song and album. So just kind of an insane year, because this was 2018 Grammys, I believe, because 2016 this album came out, and then that counts as the year 2017, which is weird and funky. The art for this album was shot by Ibra Ake. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly. My apologies. The jewelry was designed by Laura Wass, and it was modeled by Giannina Oteto. It's kind of a visual interpolation of the album cover of Maggot Brain by Funkadelic. Funkadelic has a huge influence on this album. They kind of perfected this sound of like soul and funk in the 70s. We'll talk about them a little bit more later.
And I want to say I love the name.
I was waiting for that.
Maggot Brain. I love the name.
Oh, I was also assuming you would say Funkadelic. You loved the name as well, because I think that's also a great name.
That too. Absolutely.
And then I also have to say that the model, Oteto, I believe is how you say her name, claims that she got paid poorly and was promised more money that had never come, and has not received a response from Gambino's team or any of the other creatives involved in this project. I don't know how true that is, but that does suck if it is true. And I'm hoping that something has happened, because I think that the look of this album, that album cover, is so iconic and it fits the vibe perfectly.
Yeah, please pay your artists, please.
Especially if you have that kind of money.
So then we can appreciate you too.
All songs on this album are produced by Donald Glover and Ludwig Göransson. Obviously, Donald Glover is Childish Gambino's real name, but Ludwig Göransson, you may say, that name sounds familiar. Maybe it's because he's only a Tony Award away from an EGOT, and because he's one of the greatest modern composers ever. Do you know the story of how they met?
No, I don't know much about either of them aside from their music. And obviously I've heard like Ludwig Göransson's music in movies I've watched, and he is absolutely amazing.
So Donald Glover went to NYU. Out of college, he worked at 30 Rock for the show 30 Rock. He was a writer on there for 2 or 3 seasons, I believe. And then he was like, I want to act. So he auditioned for this show called Community. You may have heard of it. I may have talked about it because it's my favorite show of all time. And it just so happens that Ludwig Göransson was the composer of all of the music for the TV series Community. They met on this.
I didn't know that.
Started a working relationship that has resulted in 4 albums and other songs. And they have both kind of blown up separately, but then also with their work together, and have kind of been cemented as both geniuses. So, and it all comes back to Community. Greatest show. Obviously, I'm going to have a lot of praise for Donald Glover. I think he's incredibly talented, but we cannot forget about Ludwig Göransson as well throughout this album. He has played so many instruments on this album, and I'm going to talk about it specifically with Redbone. Yeah, it's just incredible, the musicianship that is displayed on this album. And unfortunately, I cannot name everyone because there are so many people that have contributed to this album. So please look them up, give them their dues, because there's a lot of great musicians out there.
I imagine just like the people that performed in it as singers would be a giant long list.
There's a whole choir, yeah. This album was mixed by Andrew Dawson, Ludwig Göransson, and Riley Macklin. This is where we get our fun little connection this week. Andrew Dawson was an engineer on Watch the Throne.
That's really cool.
Yeah, kind of a strange connection there. And then this was mastered by Bernie Grundman. And now, before we get into the tracks, I think your favorite song will be either Zombies or Have Some Love.
We'll see when we get there.
Do you have any prediction for me?
So I could do either the track 9 theory, even though I could be hit with a reverse one there, or the theory where what I love you'll hate and vice versa. So, but I don't know. I'll go with California, I guess. I literally pulled that out my butt, so I have no idea.
We'll talk about it. But first, we talk about track number 1, Me and Your Mama, written by Donald Glover, Ludwig Göransson, and Zach Ray. This was the lead single of the album. It was released November 10th, 2016, and it peaked at number 68 on the Billboard Hot 100. This song has a huge intro before anything happens. It's kind of broken into 3 parts. But this intro, to me, feels like a bridge between the world of Because of the Internet, which was the album before this, and the world of Awaken My Love, which is much more organic, much more rooted in that funk, the 70s style, where Because the Internet is a very modern, well, of its time, 2013, modern album. We kind of start with this, I think the most hip hop the album gets before going into funk, just like pure straight up soul and funk. We're going to get to hear my thoughts on the album kind of right away. I said, is this the Prince effect? No, it's the Childish Gambino effect. To me, this is an album where I can see the artistry, I see the vision, and I like it, but it's just not for me, unfortunately. Well, the Prince effect is this person is talented and I dislike it. Childish Gambino effect is instead this person is talented, I respect it, but it's not for me. If somebody said 1999 was their favorite Prince album, I would be concerned. But if somebody said that Awaken My Love is their favorite Childish Gambino album, I would get it. I wouldn't agree with it, but I would say, you know what? I see that. I respect it. Anyway, I think that this is one of the more interesting songs on the album. And I'm going to say something crazy. I don't think it's too long. Even despite it being over 6 minutes long, I think it's earned that. This is a 3. What do you think? And what do you think of this world we've entered into and the Childish Gambino effect that I've just proposed to you?
I am in complete agreement with you. First of all, on the point of coining the Childish Gambino effect, and second of all, that it is affecting me. That's kind of the first thing that I realized in the first couple of songs when I was listening to this. When it comes to Me and Your Mama specifically, it's ironic that this song really is the song that feels like it has the most rap in it, considering that I wrote, it feels very like 70s psychedelic rock in a certain way, but it really is the one that's the most, rap in a way, which is kind of crazy how even though the song that is the most rap out of all the songs is still super, super like 70s psychedelic funk rock or something like that. I think it's a good intro to the album. I think it kind of like brings you into what the album is going to be like. It's kind of like, oh, this is what it is. Welcome. Like it's only going to get kind of crazier from here, and more fun in a way.
Very true. Yes. And it does get crazy.
It does. It gets super crazy. I agree. This wasn't too long for me. I actually enjoyed this. It's not something I would put on a lot. I don't think I would really put on anything in this album a lot, including my favorite song, just because of the style. I don't think it's a style that like fits, oh, I'm going to like listen to this on repeat. It's more vibey in a way, but not vibes in terms of like, oh, I'm going to vibe out to this all day. This is a 3.5. I think that this is like a really strong start to the album.
I agree with that. And this being the lead single and the first track of the album is very interesting because it does feel like the best way to enter both the world of the era, I guess, for lack of a better word, and the world of the album. And I will say, when this dropped in 2016, I was already a fan of Gambino. I knew Because of the Internet, I had decided that that was a really good album. And I heard this song and I was like, I don't think I'm going to like the direction of this one, unfortunately. But we'll talk more about that later. Track number 2 is Have Some Love. This is one that I predicted would be your favorite. I don't really have any reason for this other than I thought Me and Your Mama might be too long for you, and you'd say track number 2 is kind of a similar vibe, but like shorter. This track is written by Chris Hartz, Donald Glover, and Sam Sugarman. I only wrote one small thing for this. I think it's a fine song that's nice summery background music to throw on during a barbecue. This one's a 2.5. I think it's a slight step down from Me and Your Mama, but it's not bad and it's still like enjoyable.
That's ironic that you chose this as my favorite song because I actually agree with your notes. I think it's a little bit of a step down from Me and Your Mama. I feel like Childish Gambino is having a lot of fun with this song. It's very interesting. It's very like strange and you know experimentalist. And I did like how the song kind of evolves with different instruments coming out. I always like that in music. It just doesn't work for me as much as Me and Your Mama. This is actually a three for me.
Interesting. We're in agreement in a way.
We're agreeing about which one is better, pretty much.
Track number 3, Boogeyman, written by Donald Glover and Ludwig Göransson. This is an evil song. It has a rumbling goblin laugh in the background. The vocals have some sort of like diminished harmony throughout the entire thing that just makes it feel off kilter and like wrong in a way. And it's constantly changing between keys and structures in the song. Ironically, it feels like a song that could be used in a horror film, even though this is not the song that was used in a horror film.
Yep. Exactly.
I do think this song is fun, though. It's not something that I'm going to put on all the time, as most of this album is.
Yeah.
But it's a 2.5. I feel like this is on par with Have Some Love.
It's also a 3 from me. Yeah, this song is kind of crazy. I didn't honestly have that many things to say about it, but it's interesting how the song with like a crazy goblin laugh in the back did make me think of the 70s again. Speaks to how that decade went.
Evil.
Yeah, at least here in the US, but honestly everywhere. Yeah, this is a 3. I think it's pretty much on par with Have Some Love, even though in a lot of ways they're very different.
In a way, I feel like there's some Kesha effect going on in this album, but at the same time, there isn't, because each song is very different. It's just more of like the vibe is like very much the same throughout the song, which I think is great. And that's what makes an album good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Track number 4 is Zombies. The other song I said would be your favorite. Written by Chris Hartz, Donald Glover, Ludwig Göransson, and Ray Swen. Not a fan of the vocal performance in this song outside of the one auto-tuned line. It goes nowhere for me, and I feel like it's just kind of forgettable. This is my least favorite. I gave it a 2, and that's the reason I chose it to be your favorite. But now that we're kind of locked into this, I'm kind of thinking maybe your favorite is just going to be my favorite in this album.
We'll see. I'm thinking the same thing, to be honest. So with this song, I remember saying that the song has kind of mixed reception, and I can absolutely see why. I have a lot of respect for the song, but at the same time, it doesn't feel really listenable to me. I feel like it's something that I'll listen to and be like, okay, that was a cool experiment, but I don't really want to return to it that much, which I feel like is maybe a little bit there with a lot of the other songs, but it's not there as heavily as it is with this song. This is a 3. That being said, now I am kind of considered 2.5. It was like kind of in between. I'm going to keep it at a 3 for now, but that could also be a little bit of that Kesha effect sneaking in. So it might go down to 2.5. We'll see. But yeah, not my favorite so far.
I was going to ask you if this is your least favorite, but then I remembered that it's most likely California because that song has the most mixed reception. And you also picked it to be my favorite. So
exactly. You know me already.
We have to talk about track number 5, Riot. Written by Clarence Eugene Haskins, Donald Glover, George Clinton, and Grace Cook Hazel. And this one has some other writers because it samples Good to Your Ear Hole by Funkadelic. Now, this is the one where we get an actual Funkadelic sample. They've been floating around the ethos of this album. They very much are the inspiration and are kind of like the basis of a lot of this kind of like modern funk music. They did so much, and they're led by George Clinton, who I believe is still working to this day. So shout out Funkadelic. Shout out funk music in general. It's not really for me, but it's very cool, and I'm glad it exists. This song is dreamy and funky, I wrote, and it's a definite improvement over Zombies, but it's still not totally my thing, but I do like it more. Therefore, 2.5.
I did write that it gives me the same reaction to the last several songs. I will say that is not counting Zombies, because I know it was kind of a lower score. But yeah, I honestly don't have much to say because I've kind of said it with a lot of the different songs. It's also incredibly hard to describe these songs because they are so experimental. You kind of have to just go and like experience them. But I agree, this is a step up from Zombies. This is a 3.
I also had that same problem of describing everything.
It's very hard. But ironically, we've kind of been like in the same, or we've kind of been saying the same things about each song. And our scores are like in conjunction, just like half a point apart.
Yeah, we're pretty much in agreement on this album and kind of in agreement on the feelings, which is weird because we've kind of been doing this a little bit more recently,
Yeah.
which is, I wouldn't say concerning, but I don't know.
We're just turning into the same person.
Yeah, maybe we are. Track number 6 is Redbone, written by Donald Glover and Ludwig Göransson. Now, here we get a little fun, I guess, if you can call it that. Some places also list Bootsy Collins, Gary Cooper, and George Clinton as writers because some claim that the song is a sample of I'd Rather Be With You by Bootsy's Rubber Band. I am not an expert. I am a classically trained pianist, so I know some things, but I don't know it all. I don't know music law. But my opinion is 100% this is not sampled and this is an original song. And it's most likely inspired by the original song, if anything, but even then, it's pretty hard to tell how you would claim that. And I have a problem with a lot of these frivolous lawsuits because a lot of the time it's, I invented this chord progression. You can't invent a chord progression because there's so many of them that exist and you can only do like so many things with it. Melody, it's a little bit harder, but
Yeah.
I don't know, lawsuits, whatever. As far as I can tell, they were not sued, but their names, the other names do appear sometimes now. It is worth noting that when this was submitted to the Grammys, it was Donald Glover and Ludwig Göransson as writers and producers on it. I'm going to kind of assume that that's what it should be. Now, this song is interesting. It was the second single released 1 week after Me and Your Mama, but it didn't really do anything. It charted at 75 on the Hot 100 in December of 2016. Eventually, it fell out, recharted, and reached number 12 in August of 2017. This song took forever to get going. And it's very weird because sleeper hits are not very common, especially not in the modern days.
Yeah, that's really, really weird.
This became Gambino's biggest song until This Is America, of course. Donald Glover did the vocals and the drums in this song. He did all of the drums himself. Every single other instrument on this song was played by Ludwig Göransson. This is just the two of them. There's a breakdown of this song done by Genius where you can see in Ludwig Göransson's studio, and he gets the drums that Donald Glover laid down, and he just remakes the song there.
Like the fact that he can play so many instruments, not only is it beneficial as a composer, but he uses that a lot. I remember I became a fan of him when I first saw a video that he released about how he composed the theme song for The Mandalorian for the show, which, by the way, has a great theme song. But pretty much the video was him like, yeah, it was COVID. I was at home. And I was like, oh, I got to compose the thing. So I was like, okay, here's a flute. I'll play that. Oh, here's a guitar. Pretty much like him like being like, oh, I'll play like these 30 different instruments and then compose his banger of a title, track. So it's crazy how talented he is as a musician.
Yeah, there's really not a lot of people that are like this. And I guess kind of for good reason, because a lot of the times if you are a producer, you kind of have your one or two instruments that you specialize in, and then you want to get like session musicians that can do everything else. But this is kind of like more of a virtuoso level where it's like he just can do everything perfectly and you don't need anyone else to. Like he gets it. Before this is one of my notes, but I do want to say, if anybody's interested in that production breakdown, look up Ludwig Göransson production breakdown for Redbone. It is incredible, and it is so fun to watch. And I remember watching that in probably 2017 and thinking, this is what I want to do.
If you grow out your hair, you'll be the next Ludwig Göransson.
I just got to be Swedish.
And you got to change your name to like an old composer's first name.
Johann. I've always felt spiritually connected to Johann.
Or Wolfgang.
The Wolfgang's pretty good, yeah.
I feel like Johann fits you better, though. Anyways, to your notes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do feel like Johann fits me better as a name. Anyway, I fear that this song may have introduced the word woke to a bunch of white people, but honestly, that is a consequence that I'm willing to live with.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this song is our connection to the movie. It is used very prominently in the opening credits. I think for good reason. It's a great song. And this is my favorite song.
Oh, I should have known.
We get a little bit of a Bruce Springsteen effect in a way because it is the most popular song on the album.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen Effect was more like the whole album sucks and this is the most popular song, therefore it's the best. This album is actually good. So
Yeah.
I want to make that distinction. When he screams stay woke before the second chorus, that's one of my favorite moments on the album. I've always loved that because he like kind of cuts himself off too with the next line, but he's just screaming it. And it's like, hell yeah. Rarely do I agree with the general public, but this is absolutely the best song on the album. And I think it is that popular for a reason. Like, this is the one that stands out when you listen to it. Even if this wasn't the single and this was the song that I associate, or even if this wasn't the song that I associate with the album the most, I feel like it would become that because it is so good. And another reason for why it's so good is because it has such a long ass outro. It's like 2 minutes long. And it is so good and it keeps building and building. Also, I want to say, somehow, he did not use any vocal modulation on this song. He can just sing like that.
That is crazy.
Yeah, that's his natural voice. So I don't know how that happens. But Donald Glover is a vocalist, which we haven't talked a ton about on this album, weirdly, even though he's great. That is insane what he's able to do with his voice, especially on this song.
The control you have to have over your voice to sing like that is crazy.
The outro, I also want to say, when that piano comes in, the last like 10 seconds of it, you know I love the piano, but it feels so grand. You get the piano playing these massive chords and you get this huge like 808 sub bass. And it just feels, I listened to this on the surround sound speakers because I could, and it sounds amazing. That actually probably is my favorite moment of the album. And Ludwig talks in the production breakdown. He's like, Donald said, what if we just put in a piano at the end? And he was like, okay. And then they did it. And it was amazing. Anyway, this is a 4. This is my favorite. Is this also your favorite?
This is not actually my favorite. I do think that this song is a step up most of the album. First thing I did want to say is I put on the song and I was like, oh, wait, yeah, of course I know this song. And then I was thinking to myself, but wait, where did I hear it? And then I was like, probably the radio. And then the next day, I rewatched the movie and I was like, oh, that's where I heard it. First things first, production, I think, is excellent on this song. Again, the vocal performance is amazing. I can't believe, honestly, that he did not use anything to like manipulate his voice. That's kind of hard for me to believe. This song doesn't work for me as much as my favorite song. And this might be controversial, I do kind of feel like it goes on too long at the end.
Well, it's controversial to me, but I don't know about anybody else. I just love a long outro.
Controversial to you. I do feel like it goes on a little bit long. So just because of that, it is a 3.5. That being said, like, I think it is still a step up over like almost every single other song on the album. And you can definitely see why this song was the biggest song. And I also think there's a great choice by Peele to use this song specifically in Get Out.
Because, you know, you got to stay woke in that film, too.
Exactly.
Now, I want to say one thing before we go into California, because I wrote down after listening to this album the first time that your favorite would be Terrified. And if it actually is, and I just didn't commit to that, I'm going to be so angry with myself because I thought about it too much. And then I was like, it's too R&B. You're not going to like it. But anyway, now it's time for your least favorite song, California, track number 7.
Yes.
Written by Donald Glover and Ludwig Göransson. This song sounds like a curse. It is so fucking weird. I love it. I remember hearing this song on the night the album dropped, and I remember people losing their minds about it on Twitter. This is when I was on Twitter. This is 2016. I don't even have many memories of me being conscious during this time, weirdly. But I remember a lot about the music because that's like one of the most important things in my life. And I remember seeing the reaction to this song and everybody being like, what the fuck is this? And of course I like it because it's weird. Now She Broke in Koreatown. And then it is one of the most memorable songs on the album. In many ways, because many people think it's the worst song. I wrote it's because of the way that it is. This is a 3. I like this one. I know you don't. Why don't you like it? Is it too weird?
I feel like in some ways it maybe is too weird. The thing that ultimately doesn't work for me the most is the vocal performance because it just affects me. It's kind of the effect of when people like scratch a chalkboard with their nails. I feel like it kind of elicits the same thing in me.
It's that bad?
I don't know. I just did not like mesh with my ears or something when I heard it.
Does this give you the same reaction vocally as 100 Gex?
No, it's not to that level.
Not that bad, are you going to say?
Yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah, I was going to say that, but then I was like, you know what? I'll be nice today.
Speak your truth.
Yes, it was not that bad. But yeah, this is a 2.5. Like, it's not like a 1. It's not like I hated the song, but it just doesn't work for me. It is my least favorite. That being said, the production did kind of remind me of, and I don't know if you know this band, but it kind of reminded me of Tally Hall.
You've mentioned them before, and I don't really know them, but
Yeah.
there is like this weird...
They're from the early 2000s, I think.
The pan flute, or I actually don't know if it's a pan flute. It might be like blowing bottles.
Yeah, but whatever that sound is.
That was Ludwig, by the way. He did that.
Oh, you know it has to be Ludwig.
Track number 8, written by Donald Glover and Ludwig Göransson. This is Terrified. This might be your favorite, and I'm going to feel stupid if it is. This was the third single that was pushed to the radio in September 2017. Now, if you think about that in the context of Redbone peaking on the Billboard Hot 100 in August of 2017, his label was like, holy shit, we need another song. So Terrified was the next choice to push out to radio in September 2017. It didn't really do much, though. Please don't find me rude, but I don't eat fast food. That's a line on here. I don't know if you heard it or if you missed it, but I thought it was great.
I fully support that sentiment.
The post-chorus melody in the Glockenspiel, I believe, and the 808 is very nice. It's one of the more pleasant moments of the album, in my opinion. We get the return of the evil laugh, and this is honestly another great horror movie song.
Yeah, it is. And it fits with the title of the song, too.
J.D. McCrary, who now goes by the name Jaden or Jadon, has guest vocals on this, and you may know him as Simba from the Lion King remake, which Donald Glover was in.
Right. I'm sure that's one project he does not want to be associated with anymore.
I assume that's why he changed his name from J.D. McCrary to Jadon, which is his actual birth name.
Exactly.
Anyway, this song, I like it. I think it's pretty good. It isn't as good as some of the other songs, but in a weird way, it's the same vibe as California to me. It's a 3. Is this your favorite?
Prepare to feel stupid. I feel like this song is a big step up over all the other songs. It's my favorite. For me, this song just feels like the production and the vocals kind of come together really well with this song, which maybe is something I felt was a little bit lacking at times in the other songs, but here it really, the style really comes together. And I also just think the build-up in this, or the build-ups in this song are amazing to the choruses and the kind of the dropouts that exist right after, which I know is really, that always kind of gets me. I've noticed that a lot of my favorite songs do have that, but it's a really good song. It's really effective. And I will say my favorite part is the ending. I also want to say I'm spinning. I had to throw that out there. This is a 4. Favorite song on the album.
Very, very good. And also interesting, we have the same score for our favorite song. Different favorite song, but 4.
Exactly.
Track number 9, Baby Boy, written by Donald Glover and Ludwig Göransson. The clavinet in this song goes hard as hell. In terms of overall composition, I think this song is up there with Redbone. I think it's very beautifully structured and played, and I really enjoy it. It's a sweet vibe. It's close to a 3, but I do need to differentiate from Terrified in a way, because I do think Terrified is better, in my opinion. So this is a 2.5.
I agree that Terrified is better. That being said, I feel like, again, this is a step up over a lot of the other songs in the album. You can feel, the similar qualities in it to, songs like Redbone and Terrified. I just wanted to shout out the vocal performances in the song. Obviously, they're like amazing all over the album, but it's just crazy how like diverse they are in terms of how they sound in this specific song. On top of that, the part without any vocals goes even harder. I literally wrote down favorite part of this song that really lets you see how good Childish Gambino and Ludwig Göransson are as songwriters and producers. So that was definitely my favorite part, and that's like one of my favorite parts of the album, up there with Terrified as a song. This is a 3.5. It's a very high 3.5 though. It's like on par with Redbone, I think. And maybe even a little bit higher.
Track number 10, The Night Me and Your Mama Met, Written and produced by Donald Glover, Gary Clark Jr., and Ludwig Göransson. I wrote one thing about this and one thing only. This is the type of sexual music Prince wishes he could make. This is a 2.5.
We got a ukulele in here, which I love. Fun fact, I actually used to play the ukulele before I got bored of like playing like 4 different chords and that's it, because that's all I learned. Anyways, this song is interesting because in a way it kind of feels like gospel-y to me, which I like. I feel like it really fits the song. And yeah, this is fun, like, for lack of a better word, sexy music. Not sexy music. It like, I guess, yeah. I'll stick with that. It kind of is, right? It kind of feels like a...
It kind of is, though. It's got that like 70s, like funky kind of like porn vibe to it.
It's like when the sax comes in the porn movies.
And that like wah guitar too. It's just got that.
Yeah.
It makes you feel some type of way.
It doesn't do it in like a dirty way. Like it doesn't feel like,
no,
oh
exactly.
my God.
Very sensual.
Yeah, very sensual. Yeah, this is a 3.5. Again, I feel like this is up there with the songs that kind of work better for me in this album.
You're really liking the back half of the album,
yes,
which I kind of agree with. I think it does hit its stride.
Yeah.
I think it's more of the middle of the album for me that I really like, and then it kind of like tapers off at the end. But
well, it's interesting because it really is like, with the exception of California, yeah, the back half of this album is the strongest for me.
We got one last song, Stand Tall, written by Donald Glover and Ludwig Göransson. I think this is a great closer to the album, but it is not really for me, although I am a fan of the auto-tuned vocals, classic me moment. For all my Because the Internet fans, the flanged synth pad that appears halfway through this song reminds me a lot of the one that's in Zealots of Stockholm, which is a great song. We'll listen to it at some point because we're going to do Because the Internet, because it's maybe the best rap album in my opinion, but we'll get there. Anyway, that reminded me of that. I went back and listened to Zealots of Stockholm after that, and I was like, actually, it's really not that similar, but I wanted to shout it out anyway because I like that song. I said one note for the album overall that I've kind of touched on before. The album is great at creating a vibe and sticking to it, even if it doesn't always work for me. This song is a 2.5, but I do feel like it is the perfect closer to the album, and everything just fits and works super well together. I don't think I would change anything about it. I just, this is just not my style, really. But what'd you think? Did it end on a high note?
I did not have much to say either. It is a very like minimalist song compared to the rest of the album, which I know I've said like doesn't really work for me, and I feel like that was kind of here because I just didn't have much to say. It was fine, but it didn't really do anything for me, and I gave it a 3. I still think it's like a solid way of closing out the album, but yeah, it's kind of like after the high of the back end of the album, this song was kind of like, yeah, okay. Yeah, when it comes to the whole album, I know we've kind of already talked about our perceptions of it, but yes, this isn't really fully for me, but you can totally see the artistry, and there is such a distinct vibe, which in the songs that worked for me does work. And even when it doesn't really work, like I can still totally see why it works and why it's perceived as like really good music, because it just is, even if it doesn't work for me. Should I give my score on the whole album?
Well, I want to say one thing before we give our scores, which is this album may not be something that I fully like, but it actually sounds like good music, unlike Prince. Sorry, Prince.
It's a Prince bashing day.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the best thing I can compare it to, because they're both like funk albums in a way, but
yeah,
mostly it's because Prince is an artist that I should like and don't, and Childish Gambino is an artist that I do like, and I just don't really like the album that much. Like I've said before, it is so great at creating this world, creating a musical language throughout the entire project, and sticking to it entirely. Start to finish, there's nothing in here that sounds out of place, that sounds like it doesn't belong. This is a kind of a masterclass in creating a world for an album. I'm going to give my score. This is a 3. I think ultimately, a lot of the songs are 2.5s on here. It's not something I'm going to return to a lot, and I really haven't since it came out, aside from Redbone. But I do think that I can see the artistry, and I respect it so much, and I, in a way, like it. It's just not really my style. What's your score?
I don't really have anything to add because I am actually in complete agreement all the way to the score because this album is a 3 from me too. My perception of it is exactly what you said.
Very interesting that we've been in agreement a lot recently.
With our likes and dislikes, things tend to split a little bit more. But when we're kind of like in the middle on something, or just like in the lower end of like liking it, we're kind of in agreement. It's like a weird trend that I've kind of noticed.
We really are. And I think we're also kind of able to get the same things out of albums.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I wasn't expecting. I feel like we have such different backgrounds and likes and dislikes in across movies and music, it just feels like we should be disagreeing more. But I don't know. Maybe we'll disagree on this movie.
Speaking of movie, we're talking about Get Out, of course.
Get Out.
Get Out. Probably one of the biggest horror films of the 2010s and the 21st century. Not only in terms of like, oh, how big it is as a movie, but also kind of its social like perception. So, as usual, I'm going to start with the IMDb logline, and I do want to hear what you think. So here goes. A young African American visits his white girlfriend's parents for the weekend, where a simmering uneasiness about the reception of him eventually reaches a boiling point.
I think that's pretty good. I feel like there's another way to phrase it that gives you a little bit more of a hint.
Yes.
But in terms of a horror movie, for it not to spoil like the whole point of it, I think that does a pretty good job.
It does do a good job with not spoiling things. I do feel like, you know, when they were writing the logline, they were kind of like, okay, we can't spoil it. And because of that, they kind of held back too much.
I can see that.
I feel like you need just like a tiny bit more, just like a tiny bit. Because you listen to the logline, and honestly, I'm like, okay, if I didn't know that this was about Get Out, I wouldn't be sure if this was a horror film or not.
That's true, yeah.
But it does still work.
Because it could be like a racial tension drama.
Yeah, it could be something
instead
like that.
of a horror movie. Yeah, I could see that. Interesting.
Now, onto the credits. The movie is, of course, directed by Jordan Peele. We will be talking a lot about him today, and I will be asking you what you know about him, which I'm pretty sure I know what you know. But anyways, the film is produced by Sean McKittrick, Jason Blum of Blumhouse fame, Edward H. Ham Jr., which is probably one of the best names ever, and Jordan Peele. It's written by Jordan Peele. The cinematography is by Toby Oliver. I got through that word. Oh my God. It's edited by Gregory Plotkin. The music is written by Michael Abels. I'm not 100% sure. Apologies. And the film is distributed by Universal Pictures. And lastly, it stars Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, Bradley Whitford, Caleb Landry Jones, Stephen Root, among many others. I'll also give out Catherine Keener and Lakeith Stanfield a shout out because I feel like they're bigger cast members.
I do want to say one thing before you move on. I watched a interview. I got the DVD of this, and I watched the interview with Chance the Rapper afterwards, where he kind of talks about what the movie means. And I had a jump scare. The scariest moment of this entire film was learning that Daniel Kaluuya is British, because I did not know that.
A lot of people did not.
I was trying to place his accent because there's this very interesting linguist on TikTok that talks about Black American English and how when people try to imitate it, they always get it wrong because they're trying to mash together too many different dialects. The entire movie, I was thinking, what is his dialect? And it turns out it's just a British dude.
And that's how good he is at it, that he was able to make you think that it was just a dialect.
Yeah, I was just interesting. He has an interesting way of speaking.
Daniel Kaluuya is, in my opinion, an amazing performer, an amazing actor. And
I want to say shout out to the British, because I don't mean this to be derogatory or anything. I feel like I often do talk shit about the British, but I don't mean anything bad by it.
Shout out to
most of them.
A lot of the British. Not all of them.
Anyone who didn't vote for Brexit.
I agree with that. But yeah, I mean, Daniel Kaluuya's accent is so good in this film that just the way that you did, a lot of people thought he was British forever. American forever. To the point that I feel like a lot of people still believe that he's American, especially because he gets cast as an American a lot, I feel like. But yeah, his accent is amazing. I also did want to shout out Lil Rel Howery, who I think is also so good in this film.
I did not know he was in this. I knew him because of his show on Fox that I thought was terrible.
Well, thankfully he redeemed himself, maybe, in your eyes, potentially.
He really did. He was great in this.
He is hilarious in this film, and he adds like some much needed like comedy to the film. But let's get into it. We are going to, of course, start with Jordan Peele. At this point in time, this is back in early 2010s, potentially even late 2000s, was mostly known for co-creating and co-starring in the sketch series Key and Peele with Keegan-Michael Key, which I feel like is the way that most people knew about him before Get Out. And in some ways, still the way that some people know him most for. He had been interested in directing, and specifically in making a thriller horror film, as horror is his favorite genre, as you can probably tell, considering that all of his movies have been horrors or have been horror films, or at least have like a horror aspect to them. He has also noted a lot of times how similar comedy and horror is because of the importance of timing.
He has one of my favorite quotes that I live by when I'm writing comedy, which is, horror is just comedy without the punchline. And I don't know if he came up with that, but I've seen it attributed to him the most. And I absolutely love that because it reminds you how disgusting and like gross comedy should be, kind of, in a way, like it should make you uncomfortable.
To this day, one of my favorite Key and Peele sketches is when they play two old ladies that go to church and they're talking about how the devil is taking over members of their family by making them do bad things. And they start talking about how they're going to beat up the devil and stuff like that. And they're using like the most foul language. And it's hilarious because it's like these two old like prim ladies like juxtaposed with them like saying like, I'm going to snap the penis's dick I'm going to snap the devil's dick off, stuff like that.
I'm going to start saying I'm going to snap the penis's dick.
I got it all mixed up. Please start. But yeah, I mean, like, that shows you, like, you got to add some foul stuff to comedy.
You really do.
Now, he first got the idea for Get Out during Obama's first term as president. And of course, if you think back to this time, that was a period when a lot of people were saying that racism was finally dead or dying.
Racism is over. Thanks, Obama.
Yeah, exactly. We solved it. Which, hey, if we did, something happened because it became unsolved again very shortly after. In view of the optimism of this time, Jordan thought that he would not be able to get this film made because it's obviously not a very optimistic look at racism. And so he just started working on it for himself. As he has said, quote, I wrote Get Out not necessarily as something to get made. I wrote it more as something that would be fun to write and something that would help me get better as an artist. So there was no deadline I was giving myself. I think this is also an important reminder to all you screenwriters out there. Even if something doesn't seem like it'll sell right now, don't stop that from writing it, because even if it is not the right market for it, if it's freaking good, it will sell.
Yeah, you never know where Hollywood is going to go or if it's going to go anywhere at all because it might be over with.
Exactly. Of course, somehow racism was unsolved with the turbulence of the 2010s, including a lot of increased discussion about all the violence that was being incited against African Americans, especially by police, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, that's something that I'm just going to briefly touch and continue on from, because that's, that deserves a deeper discussion than I think we can give here.
And who wants to hear about us talking about brutality against African Americans? No, we are far too white.
Exactly. But pretty much against this backdrop, Peele realized that, hey, this is the perfect time to make this film. And he was introduced to producer Sean McKittrick by Keegan-Michael P.
Keegan-Michael P?
Oh, okay, I have something with penises and pee on the brain right now.
Oh
Keegan-Michael Key, I apologize. I'm sorry, Key. You're amazing and hilarious. I apologize. Yeah, I lost my train of thought just now. Okay, but he met Sean McKittrick and pitched him the idea, and McKittrick fell in love with it. And so they set up the script at Universal. The name of the film has been said to reference several things. One thing it references is what a lot of African American audiences, according to Peele, would yell out to characters in horror movies. They would yell out, get out, because of course, black characters were typically the first to be killed in horror movies. That was, a big trope. It also references actual signs that used to be put up outside certain towns that said get out. That would signify to African Americans to leave before sunset or else they would be killed. Of course, some of those places still exist today.
Yeah, big shout out to my to the city that like my metropolitan area is based around, because it was a sundown town up until the 70s when my parents were alive.
That is crazy.
Very weird. And we have I live in a conservative part of Wisconsin. We have some very strange and like regressive policies that a lot of people don't know about.
After that fun note, let's talk about casting. Daniel Kaluuya, who was of course British, was given the lead role of Chris Washington after doing 5 takes of the scene where he is in therapy with the mother character, whose name is I'm forgetting. But he was cast because he nailed each take. In every single take, the same tear would roll down in the same spot on his face. So after that, Peele was like, okay, you're like freaking amazing. Like, I'm going to cast you right away. And he came on board because he was drawn to the everyman character of Chris, and because of how strongly he related to the party scene and the things that all the white guests are saying to Chris Washington, which is something that I am sure a lot of people of color get at parties, even if the place is not a cult. Now, Allison Williams has said that her casting was a sort of way for Peele to disorient the audience, because it seems like she was mostly known for playing good characters or morally on the good side, thus throwing audiences off when it's revealed that she is a psychopath in this film. Kind of a way of luring people in to her. And this is actually something that she seemed to be looking for, because she has said that, quote, I was looking for a role that would weaponize everything that people take for granted about me. So I instantly signed onto it, end quote. Now, I also wanted to note something else, which I feel is very important to bring up. And that is that Williams has noted that many people misrepresent the motivation of her character, and will even go so far as defending her, saying that, she acted the way she did because she was raised in a cult, so it's not her fault. Williams has always pushed back against this, saying that that's wrong and that her character is simply just purely evil, which is something that I absolutely agree with. One last note before we get to casting. Bradley Whitford, kind of in a similar way to Allison Williams, was cast because of his prior role of Josh Lyman on The West Wing, as Peele wanted the Armitage family to have a distinct white liberal feel. Of course, the character of Josh Lyman is a liberal, or a member of the liberal cabinet of the president in The West Wing. And that was Bradley Whitford's most known role up to this point, and arguably still is, I would say, in conjunction with this.
And I gotta say, quick shout out to Madison, Wisconsin, where Bradley Whitford is from, the second most liberal city in the country after San Francisco.
Hell yeah, support. Now, I honestly don't have that much to say about the production. It seems to have gone pretty smoothly, but I did have 2 things that I wanted to just briefly discuss. The first thing is that there was a little snag before they started production where they were supposed to film in Los Angeles, but they had to quickly pivot because of budgetary constraints, because it's just too damn expensive to film in the city, and the city should do something about that. But anyway, that's a whole nother tangent. They ended up filming in Alabama, but Peele has noted that the film is not set in the South, as he did not want to portray racists, like the racists as living in the South, because he felt that that was too stereotypical, and he wanted to explore the false sense of security of a more liberal place like New York specifically. So the film is not supposed to be set in Alabama. On top of that, as we've kind of noted, he wanted the family to feel distinctly, white liberal, and he kind of wanted them to almost like be white liberals that do still have this racist side to them.
You got to get the northern racism because it is very different.
Exactly.
And it's in many ways scarier.
Yes, because it's hidden, just like it is in this film.
Exactly.
There were several different endings that were considered and or filmed. One of these is an ending that people consider where Chris tries to escape the gated community of, where all the rich families live. And then the movie cuts away. And you see it's several months later, and Rod is trying to break into the gated community to find out what happened to Chris, who's obviously been cut off. He runs across Chris and he says, "Oh my God, like, are you okay?" And Chris says, "I assure you, I don't know who you're talking about," which obviously points to the fact that the procedure was done on him. Peele considered this to be too depressing. Another ending that he considered, and that I believe he actually filmed, though, was also on the more depressing side, because originally the film was supposed to end with an actual police car pulling up after Chris strangles Rose. And then the original ending, he kills her. And so when the police ride up or like arrive, they see that he strangled her. And so they arrest him. And they obviously don't believe him they don't believe him when he says what actually happened. Again, Peele considered that, or he decided to change it because he felt that there was too much. There was too bleak of an ending, and decided to kind of use a little trick of having a police car drive up, but it'd be Rod in the end to provide a happier ending. That being said, I do kind of wonder if that original ending would have made it even a little bit more effective, because I feel like that is very true to life, but that's a whole nother discussion, which we'll get to at the end of the film.
I want to talk about that a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because the ending definitely played with my expectations, because obviously when you think horror, you think bad ending.
Yeah.
And then also after watching a movie about a bunch of black people getting essentially killed or like their lives taken from them by the white people, it's kind of like, well, I know how this is going to end. It's going to end the way it always has. And it didn't. In that way, I think that is the best ending, because you get a little bit of that Obama era hope in there where it's like, you know what? If you stick together with your friends, with the people who love you and care about you, you'll be okay.
Which I do absolutely agree with. Because at first I was thinking, what if he did? But I think ultimately it is the right choice because of the fact that, you have been seeing these characters always get sad endings in terms of like African-American characters in film. So I do absolutely agree with that. It was the right choice to ultimately change it. Even if I do wonder how it would be with the other ending, I feel like you need some of that hope sometimes. Now, I did want to talk about the music quickly before we continued. Obviously, we have mentioned that Redbone is in this film. The film also uses Run Rabbit Run by Flanagan and Allen to great effect, in my opinion. And a callback to a previous episode of ours, I've Had the Time of My Life by Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes. Now for the soundtrack, Peele wanted distinctly black voices and references for the soundtrack while not kind of going to voodoo stereotypes. And the final score by Michael Abels, apologies, incorporates Swahili voices as well as blue influence. And the phrase that you hear throughout the film in Swahili, which I won't repeat because I'll probably butcher it, apologies. It's a beautiful language. Don't know, I don't want to mess it up, pretty much. But it translates to listen to your ancestors, indicating to the listener that something bad is coming to run. And Peele has said that this serves as a warning throughout the film to Chris, which is a nice little hidden fact in there. But now let's talk about the release. It came out February 24th, 2017, and was a smash hit. It grossed $255 million on a budget of $4.5 million, which is very, very small. And it actually made it the highest grossing film domestically to be directed by a black director until it was surpassed later that year by The Fate of the Furious, directed by F. Gary Gray.
Oh, interesting. I was expecting Black Panther for sure.
Yeah, surprisingly, it wasn't Black Panther. I believe, or I'm like 99% sure that Black Panther then went on to beat The Fate of the Furious. But
I would assume because I think that was 2018, but yeah.
yeah, that was. But I was surprised that it was broken so soon just because of like how few opportunities people of color are given in Hollywood. So I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, exactly.
The film also received critical acclaim from critics and audiences, both as a horror film and as a critique on, post-racial America, as America is called nowadays.
I don't think anymore. I think that was more of that time of maybe like 2008 to 2016.
Exactly. That's kind of gone out the window. But many people noted the themes that Peele brought up and the issues that he kind of brought to the forefront, including the high number of missing African Americans in the United States. People also noted how it deconstructed a lot of typical film tropes, one of which is, of course, Chris actually surviving the film, subverting the trope I mentioned before of where the African American character always dies first, and also the reveal of Rose being a villain, subverting the white savior trope that you also find in a lot of movies in general. The film was nominated for 4 Academy Awards at the 90th ceremony. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, finally a normal screenplay-like name for the category.
Yeah, we've reached the modern times.
Exactly, finally. And Best Actor for Kaluuya. And its nominations actually proved in a way contentious because a lot of the older members of the Academy kind of dismissed it or chose not to see it.
Hashtag Oscars too white.
This is, of course, as you mentioned, partially because it was directed by an African American or just a person of color in general. And then also it's part of the Academy's just like total banishment of horror movies too. That being said, it would go on to win Best Original Screenplay for Jordan Peele, who became the first African American to win the award. And it's only the 6th horror film to be nominated for Best Picture after The Exorcist, which we talked about on this podcast, Jaws, Jaws, which, hey, maybe we'll talk about one day. We'll see.
Didn't we already record Jaws?
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
I was thinking that's a future episode for some reason, and
we
I
just
was like,
did that
oh,
last
I
week.
can't let slip.
I know. Yeah. You were thinking
I was literally trying not to slip to the audience. Yeah.
No, I got
Gosh. Yeah. So Jaws, which we talked about. Sorry, audience. The Sixth Sense, Silence of the Lambs, and Black Swan. And the film not only launched Jordan Peele's career as a director and producer, he's of course directed the films Us and Nope to critical acclaim, but it also brought Daniel Kaluuya to the forefront. It really, in a lot of ways, like shot his career up. Of course, a lot of people think he's still American, but hey. And he would, of course, go on to win an Oscar for the film Judas and the Black Messiah and appear in other movies like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, where you can actually hear him with a British accent. He puts on, I don't remember what type, but he plays Spider-Punk, everyone's favorite character. Now that we've gotten through all my notes, I have to ask you some questions. The first thing, it's kind of a two-parter, but what did you know about this film? And was it what you expected from a horror film?
So I knew very little about this film other than it was Jordan Peele and there's black people in it. And it's about racial tension. That was pretty much all I knew. I did not know Bradley Whitford was in it. I know who that is. And I was like, oh, I did not know who Allison Williams was, but I'm pretty sure I have seen her before, at least around somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like she's one of those actresses that like, you're like, she's familiar, And then you're like, oh, I've seen her in this or in that,
She's part of the generation of white women who are like in their 30s that are all just kind of the same person to me because I'm face blind.
Yes, they look very similar.
Yeah.
Well, even to me, they look kind of similar. So
okay. Well, it makes me feel a little bit better, but
that's why I'm here, Brandon.
Yeah, right. That's kind of what I knew about the film going in, how it stacks up to other horror. Now, I will say, I'm a big fan of psychological things. That's always been kind of my thing. And I think psychological horror is going to be the horror that works on me the most. There weren't like too many like huge scares in this, which I like. I like it more to be like the situation Like it almost feels like a sitcom in that way, where it's like it's not necessarily that we're telling jokes or having these massive scares. It's we're setting up the situation to feel a certain way.
I completely agree.
I really liked that, and I think that psychological horror is probably going to be one of my like favorite genres that we do of movies, which I did not think I would say, because horror a lot of the time I'm kind of like, I don't know, because I don't really get scared, and I feel like a lot of the scares are usually pretty cheap. But this felt very like well developed and like something I enjoy.
And I will say that's my favorite genre of horror, and that's kind of the horror that I've gotten into a lot in the like past year or two. Because I used to not like horror at all, but horror like that, if it's done well, it's really, really damn good. And that's my favorite genre of horror. I also wanted to shout out that there are so many like moments in this film that kind of feel like, oh, that was added in to give like a little horror feeling. But this film subverts those moments so well because they aren't just there to like, oh, give you a little jolt. They're there because it fits the characters. I think the best example I can give is, the gameskeeper who was actually the grandfather running towards Chris. You see that and you're like, oh yeah, they just added that, for a cheap little horror thing. But then you find out that no, that's the grandfather who lost going to the Olympics to Jesse Owens. So that's why he's running. He has an actual reason to do that to like practice all day and all night to try and get faster. So little moments like that, I think, add so much to the film, and they kind of subvert the pervasive use of like little moments like that to get cheap like scares out of the audience, which I really love about this film. I also wanted to ask, and this is kind of the obvious question, what did you know about Peele? Which I'm sure you knew about Key and Peele, but what did you know of him, and did that influence how you watched this film or how you thought it might be?
I knew Key and Peele, obviously, and I like it. I think they're very funny. I think they're both great writers and like actors. I knew what people think of Jordan Peele as a writer, and I knew that everybody loved him, and I figured it's probably going to be good. As I am with many things, I'm like, there's no way it's that good. Well, it kind of is that good, though. Like, honestly, this is a great movie. I mean, I don't really have like a huge answer to that question because I feel like I just know Jordan Peele from the place everybody knows him.
Yeah. And I feel like that question has a very simple answer, because that's kind of like how everyone knew of him before watching Get Out and like his other horror films, or at least how most people knew of him.
I will say, though, that Get Out was popular at the time when I was really like starting to take writing seriously as like something I wanted to do. So I got a lot of like education from watching Jordan Peele's interviews, whether that was on my own or if that was in a film class, of people saying, look, there's finally someone who isn't an old white dude talking about writing.
Two last things that I did want to ask you. What do you think of Get Out's representation of the U.S. in 2017, and do you think it translates to today? This one's kind of obvious.
I feel like it's more poignant than ever.
Yep.
God, yeah, post-racial America, guys.
It also is, discussing things that we're probably not the most qualified to talk about, and like I would say, like go watch the film and you'll see exactly what it's about.
We get a little bit of To Pimp a Butterfly going on here, where it's like,
yeah,
I feel too white to talk about this, but I still like love it and appreciate it.
The last thing I want to say is that I feel like in the past 8 years, so many things have kind of like bubbled up from like the nether of the United States dark side, that there are more sections of this film that made me go, oh, than the first time I watched it, because so many of like kind of like the not hidden, but elements that were maybe less prominent have become more prominent just because of where we are in the US, because those things have become more prominent just like in real life. And I think like that shows you just how well it is written.
I mean, I'm not a person to say that this is what the Black experience is like because I am a white person.
Yeah, we're not qualified.
A lot of people have said this is a good representation of a lot of the darker parts of the Black experience. I feel like there's something to that.
Absolutely. I completely agree as another white guy. But I thought it was important to talk about the actors in the film and their performances. So I just wanted your thoughts, if you had any. I know we've kind of discussed it already with Daniel Kaluuya in Allison Williams, but thoughts?
I haven't said my one piece about Allison Williams, which is for most of this film, I thought, I don't like her performance. It feels very stiff, very calculated, like she wants something or she knows something. And then it all changed. And I was like, oh my God, that's the perfect performance.
Yeah. I feel like she's underrated in this film.
When this movie falls apart, like when everything starts going wrong, which to me, that moment when I could start to feel my heart beating more is when he finds the like red box in, I don't even know what that is, like the little cubby hole thing. And he opens it up and he's like, oh shit, like this is it. And I felt like in that moment that I was like, oh my God, now I need to pay attention to Allison Williams almost like more than I was before. She very much is a stereotype of like white women from the city in the early to mid 2010s. I thought it was a little too on the nose at first. And then looking back, once you get further into the film, it's like, no, that's actually perfect. Like it's so well written and constructed, and then also well acted.
It subverts its own cliche almost.
So that was one thing I wanted to bring up as well.
Lakeith Stanfield is in this film for like 5 minutes, and this movie kind of also like boosted his career, kind of brought him more to the forefront, and you can see why. He takes like a very small role and makes it very memorable, even though like it doesn't give him too much to play with. The last person I want to talk about is little Rel Howery, because he is hilarious in this film and I love him in this film. As I said before, he provides like a little bit of much needed comedy. And one of my favorite scenes in this film is the scene where he goes to the police and you're like, oh my God, they're actually going to take him seriously. And then they laugh in his face, because I feel like it's just such a fun toying with the trope of like, oh, either the police believe it or they just start laughing right away, and kind of putting it in between those two to where you think that they're actually taking it seriously. And obviously it has some truth to it of like when people are like, oh, there's a black person missing, the police are likely to say, okay, and move on.
I also think the casting of a black woman as the police officer he's talking to, Jordan Peele knew what he was doing there.
Yeah, he definitely knew what he was doing there.
That's a commentary in and of itself.
But that kind of leads me to, what did you think? General thoughts, opinions, and score?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say other than I thought this was amazing. And for the first 2/3 of it, before you get into the real big like horror of the movie, it's very slow and it's very like, it just kind of guides you in and you're just waiting for that moment. And it's so well done. And then you get that moment and everything goes wrong. And it feels very fast while not being that fast at all, because of how tense it is and like the stakes that they've set up the entire time of you're going to watch somebody die. I wasn't expecting a lot of the twists in this, I will say, and I was very pleasantly surprised by all of them, because after watching so many things, after writing so many things, you're like, oh, how can I subvert everyone's expectations? And this even like subverted mine when I was thinking of what's going to happen next. One specific moment I want to talk about is when he's ripping apart the chair and you just see him like pulling I think it's cotton out of it.
Yeah, which was a very specific choice by Peele for it to be cotton in that chair.
You just kind of see him like slump down and it's like, oh my God, he's under mind control. That moment, I didn't even consider that like him playing with the chair was like something that was possible.
It's pulled off so well.
I want you to say your piece before we give our scores.
I mean, I agree. I think there is a reason why it's so well respected. When it comes to horror films, I feel like there are definitely horror films that affect me more in terms of like the horror aspect of it. But the horror here feels much more real, which I think works very well for the film. And, you know, kind of what the point of the film is, what it's trying to make you feel. I also wanted to say, rewatching it, I realized the part where everything kind of goes wrong, kind of like the section where he finds the picture or the pictures of his girlfriend with all the other African-American people to the end, you know, kind of the main like horror section of it where everything's going wrong. That feels like so much of the film, but it takes so little of the running time. And I totally forgot that when I was rewatching the film for recording this episode. And I think that that speaks to how effective that section is and how high the stakes are, because that's like really what sticks in your brain and what feels like such a bigger part of the film.
And I also wanted to say that with the sunken place, because that was such a big deal that I had not seen this movie. This was my first time watching it, of course, because that's how most movies are on this podcast. And I had seen a lot of like parodies and like people talking about the sunken place, especially on Twitter. I thought it was going to be a way bigger part of the movie. It is probably like 2 minutes total of the runtime, and it's just so memorable.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think it's kind of obvious from how we've been talking and what we both kind of think of the film. So, do you want to just give our scores?
Yes, and I went on Letterboxd, and I think I saw your score, so I kind of want you to go first.
My score is a 4. What is your score?
This is a 4.5 for me.
Ooh, is this a first?
No, we've done it, I think, only 2 other times. I wanted to put a little bit more drama on it. For me, this was really close to a 5. And I thought, do I like this more than Call Me By Your Name? And the answer is no. And I rated Call Me By Your Name a 4.5. Therefore, this has to be a 4.5. But then I also thought maybe Call Me By Your Name should be a 5. When I rewatch it, it might be a 5 again. Maybe I can make this a 5 then too. So I don't know. As of right now, it's a 4.5. This is probably going to be incredibly hard to beat in terms of horror films, because this is exactly what I like. I like social commentary. I like something that feels very modern and of its time. And I love psychological things. I think you're going to have a challenge getting me some more horror that's going to be a 5.
But talking about like shifting scores, this film does always kind of go back and forth for me between a 4 and a 4.5. I think just the last time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, this is a 4 for me. Who knows? Maybe next time I watch it, it'll be a 4.5 again. So we'll see.
I can't say enough about this film. And I think for people who are scared, I guess, and don't like horror that much, this is not a super scary film in the traditional sense of like, you're going to like be jumping out of your seat. It's more of a dreadful film, I guess, where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm watching. I can't believe what's going to happen.
The dread is much more like, oh my God, this is like real life, that kind of dread.
And I fully understand why everybody is ready to crown Jordan Peele as like the new king of horror, because this is one of my favorite movies that we've watched on the podcast. If us spoiling this film almost entirely, it has not affected you and you haven't watched it, I think you should probably watch it because it's very good.
Which, hey, I knew kind of what like this movie was about before I watched it for the first time, and it still like was really good. So go watch it regardless.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a common theme of the podcast is you should probably like watch and listen to the things that we're watching and listening to, because there's a lot of good stuff that we're finding here, I must say.
And if you want to know what it is that we're going to be watching and listening to next week, it's very simple. You just go to our Instagram and you'll find it there.
And that Instagram can be found on our link tree, along with our TikTok account where we post fun videos. You can also find our ratings and reviews on Letterboxd and Rate Your Music, which is also linked in our link tree, which is also in the description of this episode. Kind of cool how that works.
Also, apologies. I did want to say something to the audience about my Rate Your Music scores. In case you guys were checking, there was a small period where I wasn't updating them. I was having issues with Rate Your Music where I couldn't log in. Hopefully by the time this episode is out, it will be fixed. If not, I'm sorry. I am still working on it.
And if the people want to email us, David, what is that email address?
Oh God, I haven't done it in so long, I'll probably mess this up. But you can email us at upcpod@gmail.com.
Perfect.
I did it. I got it.
Just like the olden days.
Finally.
If you liked our episode, rate us 5 stars on Spotify. Leave us a review on Apple Music /podcasts.
Tell your friends and family.
Post about us on social media. Hey, we post every week. Hint, hint.
That's right.
And then, of course, we are halfway through Halloween month. But that doesn't mean that it's over. That means we have 2 more episodes for you.
That's
2 more Halloween episodes. One of them next week's may not be the most Halloween related, but
It's close enough.
we'll talk about it. It feels like it belongs in October. I'll say that. I think that's where we leave it this week.
We'll see you next week.